I'm Amber Wilson, 29 years old, and I never thought my generosity would lead to the ultimate betrayal. Working as a financial advisor in Boston doesn't make me rich, but I've always helped my family when needed. Last year, I spent $7,500 on a Hawaiian vacation for my parents' 35th anniversary. Imagine my shock when I texted to ask how they were enjoying it, only to receive, "We had a wonderful time in Hawaii last week." I stared at my phone in disbelief. My entire family had gone without me, the person who paid for it all. Before I share how this family betrayal unfolded, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had your kindness taken for granted. Growing up in suburban Pennsylvania, our family life seemed picture-perfect from the outside. My parents, Robert and Catherine Wilson, had created a modest but comfortable home for me and my younger siblings, Derek and Sarah. As the eldest child, responsibility was woven into my identity from an early age. When Mom and Dad both worked late, I was the one making dinner and checking homework. When Derek needed help with science projects or Sarah struggled with math, I was their go-to tutor. "Family always comes first," Dad would say during our Sunday dinners. "We stick together no matter what." Mom would nod in agreement, adding her favorite line, "Blood is thicker than water, Amber." Never forget that. I took those lessons to heart. Even when I earned a partial scholarship to attend college, I worked 2 part-time jobs to avoid asking my parents for help. They had enough on their plates with my siblings still at home and Dad's construction business experiencing ups and downs. "You're so responsible," Mom would tell her friends. "Amber has always been our rock." I didn't mind the role. In fact, I thrived on it, channeling my natural financial aptitude into a career as a financial advisor. The irony wasn't lost on me that I helped others manage their money while my own family sometimes struggled. The pattern started small. After I landed my first real job, Dad's truck broke down, and I offered the $800. Then Sarah needed textbooks for her nursing program, and I covered the $500 expense. Derek's car insurance lapsed, and I stepped in with $1,200 to reinstate it and pay for 6 months in advance. "Just until business picks up," Dad promised about the truck. "I'll pay you back after graduation," Sarah assured me about the textbooks. "Thanks, sis, I owe you one," Derek said about the insurance. None of them ever paid me back, but I never really expected them to. I was building my career and doing well enough. Plus, their gratitude and love felt like compensation enough, at least that's what I told myself. Things escalated when Dad's business hit a major downturn 4 years ago. One of his biggest clients went bankrupt, leaving him with $30,000 in unpaid invoices. My parents were at risk of losing their home, the place where I'd grown up and where we still gathered for holidays. "We don't know what to do," Mom sobbed over the phone. "The bank won't work with us anymore." I emptied my emergency fund and took out a small personal loan to help them make mortgage payments for 6 months. Dad promised to repay me when things turned around. They never fully did, and the loan was never mentioned again. My boyfriend James began noticing the pattern before I did. "Amber, you realize your family calls you only when they need something, right?" he pointed out after I spent an entire Sunday helping Derek move instead of going on our planned hiking trip. "That's not true," I defended them. "We talk all the time." But when I thought about it later, scrolling through my call history, I realized most conversations began with, "Hey, Amber, quick question," or "You'll never believe what happened, and now we need to." Our relationship had become transactional, with me always on the giving end. Still, they were family. Mom sent care packages occasionally with homemade cookies. Dad called to check on me during bad weather. Sarah remembered my birthdays with thoughtful cards. Derek was Derek. He'd give me a hug and tell me I was his favorite sister. I was his only sister. When I expressed any concern about money to my parents, they'd quickly remind me of their sacrifice. "We gave up so much for you kids," Mom would say. "Remember when I worked double shifts so you could go to Sans camp? Family takes care of family," Dad would add firmly. "That's just what we do." And so the pattern continued, me giving, them taking, all under the banner of family loyalty. By my late 20s, I'd helped them with approximately $45,000 in various expenses and loans that were never. Meanwhile, I lived in a modest 1-bedroom apartment and drove a 10-year-old car, funneling most of my discretionary income back into my family. James, not 2 years into our relationship, continued expressing concern. "You're enabling them," he said one night after I canceled our dinner reservation because Sarah needed help paying her utility bill. "They're adults. They need to figure things out without making it your problem every time. You don't understand, I replied, frustrated. They'd do the same for me. James looked skeptical. Would they, though? Have they ever? His question lingered with me, but I pushed it aside. Of course, they would help me if I needed it. They were my family. Even as I thought it, though, a small voice in the back of my mind wondered if that was really true. Last September, during a routine Sunday call with my mother, she mentioned that their 35th wedding anniversary was coming up in April. 35 years, she sighed. We've been through so much together. Your father wants to just go to Applebee's, can you believe it? After 35 years. Something about her wistful tone struck me. My parents had sacrificed a lot over the years, at least that's what they always told us. They'd never had a proper honeymoon. They'd postponed dreams of travel to raise us kids. Maybe it was time they had something special. That evening, I started researching anniversary gift ideas. Browsing travel websites, I found myself lingering on Hawaiian vacation packages. Mom had always talked about wanting to see Hawaii, with its black sand beaches and tropical sunsets. Dad had mentioned wanting to try surfing before he got too old. It seemed perfect, the dream trip they'd never taken. I pulled up my budget spreadsheet and stared at the numbers. A decent Hawaiian vacation for two would cost around $7,500, including flights, accommodations, and some activities. It was a lot of money, but not impossible if I was careful. The next day at work, I approached my manager about taking on additional clients. I could handle 3 more portfolios, I suggested. I've streamlined my processes. He looked surprised but pleased. If you're sure you won't burn out, I'm happy to assign you those new accounts from the Johnson referrals. For the next 6 months, I worked overtime nearly every weekday and several Saturdays. I packed lunches instead of buying them. I canceled my streaming subscriptions. James and I switched to cooking at home instead of going out. Every extra dollar went into my Hawaii fund. You're really committed to this, James observed as I clipped coupons one Sunday afternoon. They're going to be blown away. They deserve it, I said, already imagining their faces when they opened the gift. After everything they've done for us kids. When I finally had enough saved, I spent finding the perfect resort on Maui's northwestern shore. I booked an ocean view suite, airport transfers, a sunset dinner cruise, and even a helicopter tour of the island. The package was for 4 people, my parents, plus Sarah and me. I assumed Derek wouldn't be interested but planned to offer him the option as well. I created a beautiful anniversary card with a Hawaiian theme, tucking the printed itinerary inside along with a note expressing my love and gratitude for them. The reservation was for April 15, 22, which gave everyone plenty of time to request vacation days. 2 months before the trip, I invited the whole family over for dinner, excited to present my gift. I made my mom's favorite lasagna and bought a bottle of champagne for the occasion. What's all this about? Dad asked as they arrived, looking around at the decorated dining room. Just wanted to do something special, I said, barely containing my excitement. After dinner, I brought out the card and handed it to them. Happy early anniversary, I said. Mom opened it slowly, her eyes widening as she read the itinerary. Hawaii, she gasped. Amber, is this for real? Dad looked stunned as he took the papers from Mom. A helicopter tour. Ocean view suite. This must have cost a fortune. Don't worry about the cost, I assured them. You two have given us so much. It's time you had the anniversary celebration you deserve. Mom burst into tears and hugged me tightly. I can't believe you did this for us, Sarah squealed with excitement. Hawaii. I've always wanted to go. I smiled at her. Well, I thought it could be a family trip. The package includes 4 spots, you and me with Mom and Dad. And Derek, I added, turning to my brother, if you're interested, I can see about adding another person. Derek's eyebrows shot up. For real, you'd do that? Of course, I said. It's a family celebration. The rest of the evening was filled with excited chatter about the trip. Mom talked about the swimsuits she'd need to buy. Dad mentioned wanting to try authentic Hawaiian cuisine. Sarah immediately started an Instagram collection of outfit inspo for tropical vacations. As they were leaving, Mom hugged me again. You're too generous, sweetheart. This is the most amazing gift. Dad squeezed my shoulder. We raised you right, kid. I fell asleep that night feeling happier than I had in months. For once, I'd been able to give my parents something they truly deserved, something meaningful that money could buy, but that represented so much more: my appreciation for them, my love, my gratitude. In the weeks that followed, I occasionally brought up trip details. Mom, have you thought about what you want to pack? Or, Dad, I read about this great snorkeling spot near our hotel. Their responses were always enthusiastic but vague. "Oh, we'll figure it out closer to the time," or "Don't worry about all that now, honey." I assumed they were just not natural planners like me. After all, I was the one who organized family gatherings and kept track of everyone's birthdays. It made sense that they'd leave the details to me. As the trip grew closer, I tried to nail down more concrete plans. So for the flight, I was thinking we could all meet at the airport. "Does 7 a.m. work for everyone?" I asked during a family dinner about a month before the trip. "Oh, that's so early," Mom said, quickly changing the subject. "Sarah, tell Amber about your new position at the hospital." It struck me as odd, but I didn't push it. Everyone was busy, and maybe they just weren't as excited about planning as I was. As March rolled into April, a sense of unease began to settle in my stomach. Whenever I brought up the trip, my family seemed to change the subject or give non-committal responses. I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, they'd been so excited when I first presented the gift. "Mom, have you started packing yet?" "The trip is in 2 weeks," I asked during a phone call. "Oh, yes, I've been thinking about that," she replied vaguely. "Listen, did I tell you about the new neighbors who moved in across the street?" When I texted Sarah about coordinating outfits for a family photo I wanted to take on the beach, she read the message but didn't respond for 3 days. When she finally did, it was just, "Sounds good." I mentioned to Derek that he needed to let me know if he wanted to join so I could modify the reservation. "Yeah, I'll check my schedule," he said, then immediately asked if I could help him research new car insurance rates. James noticed my growing frustration. "Have you gotten any straight answers about the logistics?" he asked one evening as I stared at my unanswered text messages. "Not really," I admitted. "I'm sure they're just busy." "Maybe," he said, but his tone suggested he wasn't convinced. "But it's a big trip. You'd think they'd be more involved in the planning." A week before the scheduled departure, I still hadn't received confirmation about meeting at the airport. I called my parents' house, determined to finalize the details. Sarah answered. "Oh, Amber, Mom and Dad aren't home right now." "Where are they?" I asked. There, shopping, for the trip. You know, last-minute things," she stammered. In the background, I heard what sounded like my mother's voice, then Sarah saying, "No, don't come in here, I'm on the phone with," before she abruptly ended the call. When I tried calling back, no one answered. That evening, I drove to their house unannounced, telling myself I was being ridiculous but unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong. No one was home, which was unusual for a Tuesday night. I called Derek. "Hey, do you know where Mom and Dad are?" I went by the house, but no one's there. There was a long pause before he answered. "I think they had some errands to run." His voice sounded strained. "Derek, what's going on?" I demanded. "Everyone's acting weird about this trip." "Look, I don't want to get in the middle of anything," he said quickly. "Maybe you should talk to Mom and Dad directly." "I've been trying. No one will give me straight answers about anything." "I'd go, Amber. Work emergency." He hung up. The knot in my stomach tightened. I drove home feeling confused and hurt. James was waiting for me, a concerned expression on his face. "I think something's wrong," I told him. "They're avoiding me." "Have you checked the booking to make sure everything's still set?" he suggested. I hadn't thought of that. I pulled up the confirmation email and clicked the link to the resort's website. After entering the reservation details, I stared at the screen in confusion. The booking was still active, but the check-in date had been changed to April 8th, a week earlier than originally planned. "This doesn't make sense," I whispered. "I didn't change the date." James looked over my shoulder at the screen. Maybe there was a mix-up with the resort. I called the hotel immediately, my heart pounding. "Hello, I'm checking on a reservation under Wilson for April 15th, but online it's showing a different date." "Let me check that for you," the cheerful receptionist said. After a moment, she continued, "Yes, I see the reservation was modified on March 20th. The party checked in on April 8th and checked out yesterday, April 15th. My blood ran cold. "That's impossible. I didn't change it. The modification was made by Robert Wilson," she informed me. "It appears he called directly and provided the booking confirmation number and security information." I thanked her automatically and ended the call, my mind racing. My father had changed the dates. They had already gone on the trip. Without me. "Amber," James's voice seemed to come from far away. "What did they say?" "They went without me," I whispered, my voice breaking. "My family went on the vacation I paid for, and they didn't even tell me. They changed the dates behind my back." James's expression darkened. I don't even have words." I felt numb. There must be some explanation. "Maybe they tried to tell me and..." "Stop making excuses for them," James interrupted firmly. This wasn't an accident or misunderstanding. They deliberately excluded you from a trip you paid for. As the reality sank in, a crushing pain spread through my chest. The family I had sacrificed so much for had betrayed me in the most callous way imaginable. The next day, a massive project crisis erupted at work, demanding my immediate attention and temporarily distracting me from the personal turmoil. For 12 hours, I focused on nothing but resolving the issue for our biggest client. By the time I got home, I was physically and emotionally exhausted. Maybe get some rest before you confront them, James suggested gently. You need to be clear-headed for that conversation. I nodded, too tired to argue. Tomorrow. I'll deal with it tomorrow. Little did I know, the worst revelation was still to come. The next evening, after a restless night and distracted workday, I collapsed on my couch and mindlessly scrolled through Instagram to calm my nerves before calling my parents. That's when I saw it. Sarah had posted a series of photos with the caption, "Best family vacation ever." My finger trembled as I swept through the images. There was my mother, wearing the sun hat I'd helped her pick out months ago, smiling on a black sand beach. My father attempting to stand on a surfboard during a lesson, something I'd specifically booked for him. Sarah posing in front of a waterfall. Derek, who had claimed he couldn't commit to the trip, lounging by the resort pool with a colorful drink. But it wasn't just my immediate family. My Aunt Linda and Uncle Steve were there. My cousins Michael and Emma. Even my grandmother, who rarely traveled due to her arthritis. Everyone was there. Everyone except me. In one photo, they were all gathered around a table at the sunset dinner cruise I had reserved, raising glasses in a toast. The caption read, "Celebrating 35 amazing years with the whole family." The whole family, except the person who made it all possible. I zoomed in on another photo and noticed my father signing what appeared to be a restaurant check, using the resort credit I had prepaid as part of the package. My phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to spin around me as hot tears blurred my vision. This wasn't just an oversight or miscommunication. This was deliberate. They had taken my gift, modified it without telling me, and turned it into a family reunion that excluded the very person who had paid for it. I don't know how long I sat there, shaking and crying. At some point, James came over after work as planned and found me huddled on the floor. "Amber, what happened?" He rushed to my side, alarmed by my state. I could barely speak through my sobs, just pointing at my phone with the damning evidence still displayed on the screen. James picked it up, his expression changing from confusion to shock to fury as he swept through the photos. I can't even find words for what they are," he said finally, his voice tight with anger. "How could they do this to you?" I shook my head, still unable to comprehend the betrayal. With trembling hands, I picked up my phone and texted my mother a simple question, "How was Hawaii?" Her response came almost immediately, "The whole family went last week. It was wonderful. The resort you picked was absolutely beautiful." The casual tone, as if nothing was wrong, pushed me over the edge. I tapped back. "The whole family except me, you mean? The person who paid $7,500 for the trip?" There was a long pause before her next message appeared. "Oh Amber, we thought you were too busy with work to join us. You're always so busy." Before I could respond, my father texted, "There was a miscommunication, sweetheart. We thought you booked it as a gift, not that you expected to come along." Then Derek, "Don't be dramatic, sis. You know how you always say you can't get away from work. We figured you'd understand." Each message felt like another knife in my heart. They hadn't even considered including me. Worse, they were now trying to gaslight me into believing it was somehow my fault. I threw my phone across the room with a scream of anguish. James caught me as I collapsed, holding me while I sobbed uncontrollably. "How could they do this?" I kept repeating. "How could they be so cruel?" James had no answers, just quiet support as my world crumbled around me. Later that night, as I scrolled numbly through more social media posts, I discovered Sarah had actually tagged me in a post from Hawaii 5 days earlier, a post I'd somehow missed during my work crisis. It read, "Missing at Amber Wilson on this amazing trip she made possible. Too bad you couldn't join us, sis." The comments section was filled with responses from extended family. "So generous of Amber to give this gift. Tell Amber thanks for making this reunion possible. Too bad Amber is missing all the fun she paid for." The casual acknowledgement of my absence, as if it were a known and accepted fact rather than a deliberate exclusion, made the betrayal even more painful. They had discussed me, thanked me publicly for my generosity, all while knowingly leaving me out of the very experience I had created and paid for. It was in that moment that something inside me broke permanently. The illusion I had maintained about my family that they valued me beyond what I could give them shattered completely. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I couldn't focus, couldn't think straight, couldn't pretend everything was normal. James offered to stay with me, but I needed to handle this myself. "I'm going to their house," I told him. "I need to hear them say it to my face." "Do you want me to come with you?" he asked, concern evident in his eyes. I shook my head. "This is between me and them, but thank you." The 20-minute drive to my parents' suburban home felt like crossing an ocean. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. What would I say? How could I possibly express the depth of hurt I was feeling? When I pulled into their driveway, I saw all the family cars were their mom and dad's, Derek's and Sarah's. They were all home, probably sharing more memories of their wonderful Hawaiian vacation. Mom answered the door, her smile faltering when she saw my face. "Amber, we weren't expecting you. Come in, we were just having coffee." The casual greeting, as if nothing was wrong, nearly broke me again. I stepped inside to find my father and siblings sitting around the kitchen table, tan and relaxed from their tropical getaway. "Well, this is a nice surprise," Dad said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Want some coffee?" "No," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I want an explanation." The room fell silent. They exchanged glances, a wordless communication that excluded me once again. "Explanation for what, honey?" Mom finally asked, though her nervous fidgeting made it clear she knew exactly what I meant. "For taking the vacation I paid for without me," I said. "For changing the dates behind my back. For bringing the entire extended family except me. For pretending it was some kind of miscommunication when it was clearly deliberate." Dad cleared his throat. "Now, Amber, there's no need to be upset. We assumed you booked it as a gift for us, not that you expected to come along." "A gift?" I repeated incredulously. "I specifically said it was a family trip when I gave it to you. I talked about what we would all do together in Hawaii. How could you possibly think I didn't plan to come?" "You're always so busy with work," Sarah chimed in. "You cancel plans all the time. We figured you wouldn't be able to get away anyway. So instead of asking me, you just decided to exclude me and bring everyone else in the family instead." "That was Mom's idea," Derek muttered, earning a sharp look from our mother. "We had those empty spots," Mom said defensively. "It seemed a shame to waste them when family could use them." "Those empty spots were for me and Sarah, and possibly Derek if he wanted to come." I was shouting now, unable to contain my rage and hurt. "You didn't just take my gift, you actively worked to keep me from being there. We used the reward points from your booking to add the extra people," Dad admitted, still not meeting my eyes. "It was a good deal, and everyone wanted to come." The casual admission that they had leveraged my gift to benefit everyone but me was the final straw. "Do you have any idea how much that trip cost me?" I asked, my voice dropping to a dangerous calm. $7,500. I worked overtime for 6 months to save for it. I skipped dinners out, canceled my streaming services, clipped coupons like I was back in college. All to give you a special anniversary gift that included me, because I thought we were a family who valued each other. Mom's eyes widened at the amount. "We had no idea it was that expensive," she said weakly. "Would it have made a difference if you had known?" I challenged her. "Or would you still have decided that I didn't deserve to be included in the family vacation I paid for?" "You're being dramatic," Derek cut in. "It's just a vacation." "It's not just a vacation," I exploded. "It's years of me giving and giving to this family with nothing in return. It's me emptying my savings to help Dad when his business was failing. It's me paying for your car insurance, Derek, and your textbooks, Sarah. It's me putting my own financial security at risk to bail you all out whenever you need it, and the one time I create something special that includes me, you cut me out without a second thought." The room fell silent again, my family looked stunned by my outburst. "We appreciate everything you've done," Mom finally said, tears welling in her eyes. "You know we do." "No, you don't," I said quietly. "You take it for granted, you expect it. And when I wanted to be included in something I paid for, you decided I wasn't important enough." "That's not fair," Dad protested. "We'll pay you back for the trip." I laughed bitterly. "Like you paid me back for the mortgage payments, or the truck repairs, or any of the other thousands of dollars I've given this family over the years." He flushed red. "We're your parents. We raised you, put a roof over your head, fed you. And I've been paying you back for that basic parental obligation since I was 22, I interrupted. When does it end, Dad? When have I given enough to be treated like a real member of this family instead of just an ATM? You're being ridiculous, Sarah snapped. No one thinks of you that way. Really? When was the last time any of you called me just to talk? Not to ask for money or help or a favor. When was the last time you asked about my life, my relationship, my goals? Their silence was damning. That's what I thought, I said, suddenly feeling exhausted. I'm done being the family piggy bank. I'm done being taken for granted. I'm done being excluded from my own family while still being expected to foot the bill. What are you saying? Mom asked, alarm crossing her face. I'm saying I need space from all of you, a lot of space. And if I decide to have you back in my life, things will be very different. You can't just abandon your family over one misunderstanding, Dad said, anger replacing his earlier defensiveness. This wasn't a misunderstanding, I replied, heading for the door. It was a revelation. And I should thank you for it, because now I finally see clearly what I mean to this family. Amber, please, Mom called, following me to the door. Don't leave like this, we can work it out. I turned to face her one last time. There's nothing to work out. You've shown me exactly where I stand. The only thing left is for me to decide what I'm going to do about it. As I walked to my car, I heard Dad's angry voice behind me. She'll cool down and be back. She always comes back when we need her. That final comment, so casually revealing, cemented my resolve. I got into my car and drove away from the house I'd grown up in, feeling both broken and somehow freed. The week following my confrontation with my family was one of the darkest of my life. I moved through my days like a ghost, going through the motions at work but unable to focus or engage. Sleep eluded me, and when it did come, it was filled with dreams of being abandoned, forgotten, erased from family photos as if I'd never existed. James became my anchor, bringing food when I couldn't summon the energy to cook, sitting with me in silence when words failed, and holding me when the waves of grief became overwhelming. I feel so stupid, I confessed to him one evening as we sat on my couch, takeout containers barely touch on the coffee table. How did I not see this coming? How did I convince myself they valued me as anything more than a financial resource? Because you wanted to believe the best of them, James said gently. That's not stupidity, Amber, that's love. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from my family. My mother alternated between guilt trips, I cried all night, I hope you're happy, and attempts at minimizing what had happened, you're blowing this way out of proportion. My father's messages were angrier, focusing on family loyalty and my responsibility to forgive them. Sarah sent a half-hearted apology that quickly devolved into explaining why I was overreacting. Derek maintained radio silence. 3 days after the confrontation, I experienced my first panic attack in the middle of a client meeting. My heart raced, my vision tunneled, and I couldn't catch my breath. My concerned colleagues called James, who took me straight to urgent care. This is a normal stress response to emotional trauma, the doctor assured me after ruling out physical causes. I'd recommend speaking with a mental health professional. The next day, I made an appointment with Dr. Rachel Bennett, a therapist James's sister had recommended. Walking into her warm, simply decorated office, I felt both relief and apprehension. Could anyone truly understand the magnitude of what I was feeling? Dr. Bennett listened attentively as I poured out my story, occasionally asking clarifying questions but mostly letting me speak uninterrupted. When I finally fell silent, emotionally exhausted, she leaned forward slightly. Amber, what you're describing is a pattern of family dynamics that's been established over many years, she said. You've been cast in the role of family giver, the responsible one, the fixer, the provider. And while that role may have given you a sense of purpose and value within the family system, it's created a profoundly unhealthy imbalance. But they're my family, I whispered. Aren't we supposed to help each other? Healthy families support each other reciprocally, she explained. What you're describing is a one-way relationship where you give and they take. That's not support, that's exploitation. The word exploitation hit me like a physical blow. It seemed so harsh, yet it accurately described what had happened. I had been exploited by the people I loved most. Over the following weeks, Dr. Bennett helped me examine the patterns that had defined my family relationships. We explored how being the eldest child had shaped my sense of responsibility, how my parents had reinforced my caretaker role, and how I had derived my sense of worth from being needed. "You've built your identity around being the family helper," she observed during our fourth session. "When you're not helping them, who are you?" The question unsettled me deeply. Who was I outside of my role as family provider? I wasn't sure I knew anymore. Meanwhile, my family's attempts to contact me continued, growing more desperate as my silence extended. My mother left tearful voicemails. "Amber, please call us back. We miss you, we're worried about you." My father's messages became increasingly angry. "This silent treatment is childish and disrespectful. We raised you better than this." Sarah sent a text that particularly stung. "I get that you're upset, but don't you think you're overreacting a bit? It was just a miscommunication. We still appreciate everything you do for us." Dr. Bennett suggested I start journaling as a way to process my feelings without responding to these manipulative messages. I filled pages with my hurt, anger, and confusion. "I don't know if I can ever trust them again," I wrote one night. "Every memory I have is now tainted by the question, did they include me because they wanted me there, or because they needed something from me? Did they ever love me for who I am, not what I could give them?" James continued to be my steadfast support, never pushing me to reconcile with my family but also not vilifying them completely. "People are complicated," he said one night as we walked through the park near my apartment. "They can love you and still take advantage of you. They can care about you and still act selfishly. The question is whether they're willing to recognize what they've done and make real changes." With Dr. Bennett's guidance, I began to establish boundaries, something I'd never done with my family before. I drafted emails to each family member, explaining that I needed space to process what had happened and would contact them when I was ready. I blocked their numbers on my phone to prevent the constant triggering messages, giving their contacts to James in case of genuine emergency. "Boundaries aren't punishments," Dr. Bennett reminded me. "They're protective measures that allow you to heal and potentially build healthier relationships in the future." The space allowed me to focus on my relationship with James, my friendships that had withered under the constant demands of my family, and my own long-neglected needs and interests. I joined a book club I'd been putting off for months. I took a weekend photography workshop. I reconnected with college friends I'd lost touch with. Slowly, I began to rediscover who Amber Wilson was beyond her role as family provider. I was a dedicated financial advisor who genuinely cared about helping clients secure their futures. I was a loyal friend with a dry sense of humor. I was a woman who loved early morning hikes and late-night conversations about philosophy. I was more than what I could give to others. As the weeks turned into months, the raw wound of betrayal began to scab over. The pain didn't disappear, but it became more manageable. I could go days without crying, then weeks. I started sleeping through the night again, food regained its taste. In our sessions, Dr. Bennett and I began discussing what future contact with my family might look like if I decided to allow them back into my life. "What would you need from them to consider rebuilding those relationships?" she asked. I thought carefully before answering. Genuine acknowledgement of what they did and why it was wrong. Not excuses or minimizing or blaming me for being too busy, real remorse and understanding of the pattern we've been stuck in, and concrete changes in behavior, not just promises. "Those are healthy expectations," she affirmed, "and if they can't or won't meet them." The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. Could I accept a future without my family in it? The thought was both terrifying and, I was surprised to realize, somewhat liberating. "Then I'll have to accept that and move forward," I said finally. "I can't keep sacrificing my well-being for people who don't value it." Dr. Bennett nodded. "That's profound growth, Amber. 3 months ago, you couldn't have said that." 3 months. It had been only 3 months since the discovery that had shattered my world. In some ways, it felt like years. In others, like yesterday. The journey of healing wasn't linear. Some days I felt strong and resolute. Others, I was swamped by grief and doubt. But through it all, one truth had emerged with crystal clarity. I deserved better than what my family had given me. I deserved reciprocity, respect, and genuine love, not just appreciation for what I could provide. And if they couldn't offer that, I was finally strong enough to walk away. 3 months after the confrontation, James and I were enjoying breakfast at our favorite cafe when he asked, "Have you thought more about Sarah's text?" 2 weeks earlier, my sister had somehow gotten a message to me through a mutual friend. "I miss you, can we talk, just us? No mom and dad, no Derek. I want to understand." I sipped my coffee, considering. Part of me wants to meet her. Another part is afraid it's just another manipulation. You don't have to decide right now, James reminded me, and whatever you choose, I support you. That afternoon, after much deliberation, I texted Sarah from my new number, coffee tomorrow at Riverdale Cafe, 2 p.m. Her response was immediate, I'll be there, thank you. The next day, I arrived early, selecting a table in the corner that offered privacy but was still in public. When Sarah walked in, I was struck by how tired she looked. The Hawaiian tan had faded, leaving dark circles under her eye. Amber, she said, her voice cashing. Thank you for meeting me. I nodded, not quite ready to offer more. After ordering, an awkward silence fell between us. Finally, Sarah spoke. I've been seeing a therapist too, she said, surprising me. After you cut contact, I started thinking about everything you said, about how I treated you. I didn't like what I saw. I remained silent, waiting. You were right, she continued, her eyes filling with tears. We took you for granted. We expected you to always be there, always helping, always giving. And when you created something special that included yourself, we decided it would be more convenient if you weren't there. She wiped her eyes. It was selfish and cruel, and I'm deeply ashamed. Her words sounded genuine, not like the defensive half-apology she'd offered before. What about Mom and Dad? I asked. Sarah sighed. They're struggling, Dad's still angry, feels like you've abandoned the family. Mom goes between being hurt and being guilty. They don't understand the way I'm starting to. And Derek? Derek is Derek, she said with a sad smile. He misses you but won't admit it. Keeps saying you'll get over it eventually. I nodded, not surprised. What do you want, Sarah, from this conversation, from our relationship? She considered the question carefully. I want my sister back, she said finally. Not the ATM or the problem solver or the perpetual giver, just my sister, on equal terms. I want to rebuild something healthier, if you're willing to try. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and I began the slow process of reconstructing our relationship. We met for coffee or lunch, carefully avoiding family-centric topics at first, instead reconnecting over shared interests and catching up on our individual lives. She told me about her promotion at the hospital. I shared stories about my photography workshop. It was tentative and sometimes awkward, but it felt like a genuine beginning. A month into our renewed connection, my father showed up unannounced at my apartment. James was with me, and I was grateful for his steadying presence. Amber, Dad said, looking older than I remembered, can we talk? We sat in my living room, the tension palpable. Dad seemed uncomfortable in the space, though he'd been there many times before, always to ask for help with something. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he began, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. About what happened with the Hawaii trip. About everything before that. He paused, struggling. I wasn't a good father to you. Not the way I should have been. The admission, so unexpected, left me momentarily speechless. I put too much on your shoulders, even when you were young, he continued. Then when you became successful, I felt entitled to your help. Like you owed us. He met my eyes directly for the first time. I was wrong, and what we did with the vacation was inexcusable. I'm truly sorry, Amber. His apology wasn't perfect. There were still traces of the old defensiveness, the ingrained belief that family entitled him to certain things. But it was genuine, and that was a start. I appreciate that, Dad, I said carefully, but rebuilding trust will take time, and things can't go back to the way they were. He nodded. I understand, I'm willing to try if you are. The following week, a letter arrived from my mother, handwritten, tear-stained in places, and profoundly different from her previous attempts at contact. My dearest Amber, she wrote, these months without you have made me realize how much I took you for granted. Not just your financial help, but your emotional support, your time, your love. I expected everything from you and gave too little in return. The Hawaii trip was just the culmination of years of imbalance, and I'm deeply ashamed of my role in hurting you so badly. I don't expect immediate forgiveness, but I hope someday you might allow me the chance to be a better mother than I've been. The letter moved me deeply, though I remained cautious. Words were relatively easy. Sustained change would be the true test. Derek was the last to reach out, sending a terse text. Sarah says I should talk to you coffee sometime. Our meeting was strained, with Derek alternating between genuine remorse and residual defensiveness. I did feel bad about the Hawaii thing, he admitted grudgingly. But I didn't know how to fix it, so I just went along with everyone else. That's been our pattern for a long time, I pointed out. Everyone expecting me to fix everything while no one considered my needs. He had the grace to look ashamed. Yeah, I see that now. Over the following months, I established clear boundaries with my family. Financial assistance was off the table entirely. I would participate in family gatherings on my terms, leaving when I felt uncomfortable. I expected regular check-ins that weren't centered around requests for help, and I made it clear that any return to old patterns would result in me stepping back again. To my cautious surprise, they respected these boundaries not perfectly, but with genuine effort. My father still occasionally slipped into asking for help before cashing himself. My mother sometimes tried guilt when she didn't get her way. But they were trying, and that meant something. Meanwhile, James and I grew closer through the ordeal. I'm proud of you, he told me one evening as we planned a weekend getaway to Vermont. Standing up for yourself, demanding better treatment, that takes incredible courage. I couldn't have done it without you, I replied honestly. Yes, you could have, he countered, but I'm glad you didn't have to. 6 months after the Hawaii incident, we gathered at my parents' house for a carefully planned dinner. The atmosphere was different, more respectful, less presumptuous. My mother had asked what dishes I'd prefer rather than assuming. My father had sent the invitation weeks in advance rather than expecting me to drop everything. Small changes, but meaningful ones. After dinner, as we sat in the living room, my father cleared his throat. Amber, your mother and I have something for you. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $7,500, the exact amount I'd spent on the Hawaii vacation. We've been saving, Mom explained. It took longer than we hoped, but we wanted to repay you for the trip. I looked at the check, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Thank you, I said finally. This means a lot. We're also planning a family trip to the Poconos this summer, Dad added. Nothing fancy, just a weekend at a cabin. We'd really like you and James to join us, if you want to. The invitation was offered tentatively, respectfully acknowledging my right to decline, my position as an equal adult rather than the family provider. We'll think about it, I said, and meant it. Later that night, as James and I walked hand in hand through the park near my apartment, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. I'm still healing, I told him. There are still moments when the hurt comes back sharply. But I think we're building something healthier now. Something that might actually last. Relationships worth having take work, James said, from all sides, not just from you. I squeezed his hand, grateful for his unwavering support. I've learned that my worth isn't measured by what I can give to others, that I deserve reciprocity and respect in all my relationships. Those are valuable lessons, he agreed, painful ones to learn but valuable. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear. There would be setbacks, old patterns that threatened to reemerge, moments of doubt. But for the first time in my adult life, I was engaging with my family as an equal, not as a provider, not as a fixer, not as an ATM, just as Amber, a woman worthy of love and respect for who she was, not what she could give. And that, perhaps, was the most precious gift I could have received, the freedom to be myself, to set boundaries, to expect better. The knowledge that I was enough, just as I was. If you've ever felt taken for granted by the people closest to you, I hope my story helps you recognize your own worth. Learning to set boundaries is hard, but you deserve relationships built on mutual respect and care. Have you ever had to confront family members about taking advantage of your generosity? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, you deserve to be valued for who you are, not just what you can provide. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength and clarity in your own.